Welcome to PlayStation Corner, my name is Alex, and today we're going to be taking a look at Martha is Dead on the PlayStation 5, a horror experience that has found itself in the spotlight thanks to censorship from Sony for this PS release. But is it actually going to be worth your time? Well, that is what I'm here to talk about today, so hit subscribe, join us here on PlayStation Corner for reviews and deals weekly, and let's get started. Before we do kick this off then, let's talk censorship, but also a quick heads up. Today's review, it will address adult themes, so please do know that going in. The main scene in question, it seems to be early in the experience. You will remove a corpse's face and wear it as your own. The censorship, it actually doesn't remove the scene entirely, rather just a simple, few inputs, which I guess were designed for, immersion and impact. Does it impact the game though? Not really, honestly. Do I like the removal? Definitely not. We have a rating boards for a reason. This was not cut on Xbox or PC. This is Sony directly. Why do we have a ratings board if you go ahead and do that? It would be like a cinema cutting, let's say, a scene from a movie based on their own opinion. It should be consumer choice and nothing else. It is a brutal game as well, but maybe not in the sense you're expecting. It's not just in its horror, but its themes, generally. Please know as well, this will get mixed reviews. I'm waiting for the "there's too much gore" reviews out there, but please ask yourself who the idiots are in the equation here. The game sets expectations the second you load it up. It's not hiding what's to come, and they still choose to jump in. Honestly as well, I think we've seen much worse in the past. It's just kind of those adult themes. Set in 1944 Italy, we have a number of themes here playing out. The main concept though, as the title suggests, your sister Martha has just passed away in what I'd call mysterious circumstances. You are twin sister Giulia, and you are not only dealing with that loss, but the war around you. Your father is a German leader, and then also the mental impact this has played upon yourself. The game's presentation is almost episodic though, with both story-focused plot points and additional narrative. And yeah, generally the story, it is a huge focus. The opening hour of the game, in fact, is a huge chunk of story, meaning the pace can feel a little bit slow to start, but it establishes a really strong backbone for the rest of the experience. For some, the constant shift in tone, it might be a little bit overwhelming. World War, family issues, surreal moments, general horror, but I think that is what made it unique. The real surprise for me was the horror moments. They're relatively few and far between. The scares, they don't come all that often, but there's always a sense of dread that to me felt a lot more powerful. To some though, the lack of horror in the jump scare kind of variety, that may definitely disappoint. This I would describe as almost an art house movie dressed up as a game. So gameplay, and honestly what we have here essentially is a walking simulator, though it does keep the pacing up thanks to a sprint functionality. There's no combat in this one though, it's more about exploration, basic inventory management, and just generally uncovering points of interest. This is then supplemented with photography, which I really enjoyed, and some basic puzzles. Think translate, work out a location, and also find items. One particular highlight, though extremely difficult, working with Morse code to both send and receive messages. This had me stuck for a good while, but its commitment to authenticity, it really is respectable. That goes for the camera too, worrying about framing, focus, aperture, and then developing the photos directly. It gets that balance between realistic enough to provide a new challenge, but not overkill to the point of boredom. Rounding out the player's involvement in the gameplay, then you have a lot of text, a lot of things to find around this world. The one thing I didn't like here was you couldn't skip through the text, and some of them, they could definitely be long-winded. You will also then have some moments which are auto-runner. You're piecing together a sentence as you run through what can only be described as a nightmare-like landscape. That is by far the weakest element of the gameplay, honestly, but it's still unique enough that I didn't mind their inclusion. The final bit, a few basic vehicles, a boat, a bike, and they handle well enough given their relatively slow pace. Again, this is very much a narrative-based experience and a popular choice now within the genre. The shifts in tone though, they definitely lead to the gameplay feeling unique throughout, given how basic the control scheme is. It achieves a decent amount of variety, in its world and its navigation, given it's such a small sandbox location. I kind of had this fear it would be walk to the lake, walk back and repeat, and that is definitely not the case. The home location and the farm, they are particularly impressive with a whole lot of secrets to uncover, and then the dark room, that was the personal highlight for me as you develop these photos. There's just some really unique little rooms hidden in here. That said though, sadly the game's not without its issues. The movement, it can feel a little bit clunky at points, but a solution for me, jump into the options, dial back the head bob. You'll also notice that the controls in the auto run moments, they definitely feel, floaty, like the character is flying rather than running. Finally, I did encounter a couple of bugs as well. At one point I got stuck in the environment, though I did manage to get myself out of that. And then I also managed to fall under the water and could not get out without booting up my last save. One other thing you'll also notice, if you move away from the main path, it's filled with invisible walls, and that's a shame because traversing these almost forest locations, it could have been both exciting and, fear-inducing. Even with its problems though, I really enjoyed it. I do enjoy a good story myself, and this felt unique. I just hope a few early patches now can resolve the few weirder instances I face, because no doubt there's more out there given the sandbox design, so I'm curious to see if anyone else ran into any other issues. So graphically, it's a great looking game, but the further you get into it, the more its kind of weaknesses do begin to appear. First of all, the location itself, Italy, a country mansion of sorts, it's stunning, and while it's not the biggest, it just feels lived in and realistic as you navigate the halls and surrounding farm. With progression though, you will begin to see some pop-in and textures that won't fully load. I also quickly realised my father, my mother, and a few others, they communicate with you often, but rarely do you actually see them kind of moving about. It leads to the location by the end game feeling just a little bit empty, and when you do see something, it's normally there to give you the creeps. It means, I guess it kind of impacts your reaction by the end. You'll know it's not going to be a friendly 99% of the time. The camera then, as I've said, I think it was implemented perfectly. I think it looks really good though. The aperture, the focus, all of these different little pieces, the moving parts, it just looks really good. Then let's say the enemies, to avoid spoilers, I like the designs, but I wouldn't call them scary or intimidating. Audio finally, and it is stunning. The real highlight has to be the dialogue to drive home the authenticity though that it strives for. The game is actually preset to English subtitles, Italian language. I actually also though took the time to jump into English as well on both, and it is expertly delivered. Whether it's Italian or English, I was so impressed. It absolutely elevates the entire experience, and for me it is what kept me so engaged. This is then reinforced with simple but effective sound design, the general, countryside, the sounds of war occasionally, the more horror-centric, and the music, it shifts with the tone often setting up the horror, but also just occasionally simply teasing you and playing with you. No complaints on audio, I think this is a hell of an achievement. So the final verdict, and Martha is dead, it's for the narrative fans out there, and first off, this whole censorship thing, I'd call it probably dumb at best. That said, the horror actually isn't that frequent. It's the themes, the topics, that for me, they won't be for everyone, but it's an adult game for you to make your own decision around, and you have the choice now whether you want to part with your cash for it, or definitely steer away. Overall though, this is unique, but I think some are going to go in with the wrong expectations here, this constant sense of horror. That is not the case. That is just a very small portion of the game, and then it's kind of like dealing with different tones, different themes, and I'd consider a lot of them almost, I guess, real world horror, and I think for many that's going to actually play a larger impact. Having completed the game now though, even with its issues, I really did enjoy it, so it's a good 7 out of 10 from me today. Yeah, the narrative just helped me overcome its shortcomings. Will you be adding this one to the library then, or are you holding onto that cash? With that then, hit subscribe. Join us here on PlayStation Corner for reviews and deals weekly, and I'll see you all on the next video. Thanks everyone.